Hello, I'm Juan from the Weather team. In this practice, we'll sketch a stylized 3D vehicle, express volume as if rendering with markers, and finalize the sketch using a glow material. Okay, let's get started. Before we begin, get comfortable with the gestures that switches between perspective and orthographic views by double tapping with 3 fingers. In this practice, you'll be switching between these 2 views quite often. Also, don't forget to turn the mirror feature on. I'll keep the Y-axis mirror, shown in green, enabled. Start from the top view. Imagine a vehicle about 4 grid units long and 2 grid units wide. And draw a 3D guide that allows you to sketch the front, rear, and side of the vehicle at once. Then move to the side view and draw the side proportions. I'll go for a sports car with a long nose and a short deck. There's no need to be too precise. Treat it like a thumbnail sketch on a paper, and that will be more than enough. Add the wheelbase and the character lines as well. Now, if you look at the sketch from the front view, you can see it lacks a sense of depth. That's expected. A vehicle like this is closer to a flattened sphere than a box shape. So how do we sketch in 3D without relying on a box? Let's break it down step by step. Go back to the top view and redraw the same 3D guide you made earlier. Then move to the front view and get ready to use the band 3D guide. Remember that the band 3D guide bands the orange line on the 3D guide. If band 3D guide feels tricky, try using it only in a perfect view. After using the band 3D guide to bend the guide like this, go to the side view and redraw the cabin line. Let's delete the lines we drew earlier, then select the newly drawn lines. I want this sports car to have a narrow, uncomfortable cabin, so let's transform it using the joystick. Then redraw the remaining lines with more volume and a stronger sense of depth. After cleaning up the sketch with the eraser, now comes the fun part. The hood looks a bit too long, so I'm going to shorten it, while still keeping the curvy feeling. To do that, select the curve and use the joystick to adjust the horizontal scale. If you've worked with nerves curves before, this will feel familiar. Just keep in mind that in Feather, the transform pivot point is always at the center of the screen. Finally, draw the wheels once more. The wider the wheel arches that when viewed from the front, the more stable the overall proportions will feel. Let's redraw more lines. We'll start with the character line. If you look at this red car here, you'll notice that there's almost always a specific line along the side of the vehicle where light gathers. This is called the character line, and it's a key element that defines the design of a vehicle. Since this line plays a major role in shaping the volume, draw a 3D guide from the side view, then draw the line from the top view. Make sure to express the volume around the wheel arches as well. Let's redraw the bottom line with more volume as well, following the volumetric form we established while drawing the character line. To make the shape of the volume more intuitive, I'll add vertical section lines. Draw 2 of them so we can use them as references later when sketching the door trim. Next, what do you call this again? I've completely forgotten the name. But anyway, let's draw one more line that helps define the village. It's been a long time since I graduated, so I've forgotten most of the design terms. If you know what this line is called, let me know in the comments. Finally, add more volume to the sketch and layer in various section lines and details that express each character. We are reading the three-dimensional form of the car using lines alone. That means the more lines you add, the more dimensional it appears. People usually say details should come last, but let's draw them now. This is the most fun part anyway. If it's not fun, why bother drawing it yourself? Now it's time to prepare for rendering. The current sketch look is nice, but we'll redraw the lines more cleanly so they're better suited for painting surfaces. First, select all the curves and adjust the opacity using the brush slider on the left. Then increase the stable stroke amount so the lines are corrected and drawn more cleanly. Let's start by redrawing the Kevin line. Use the existing sketch as a reference to draw a 3D guide. Then cleanly refine the line from different angles. Make sure to draw the line from at least 2 different views and always check it again in perfect view. Redraw the front and rear as well. There's no need to get it perfect in one go. Take your time and slowly repeat the process, drawing the line multiple times until it feels right. Feel free to refine the redrawn lines as much as you like. You can adjust the horizontal and vertical scale using the joystick, or use the Rigify feature to tweak the curvature. Just be careful that the lines don't look dented or sunken anywhere. They should always maintain a constant sense of tension, as if someone is pulling the line tight from both ends. Next, let's redraw the underline. If you give this line a slight upward kick, it creates a rocker line feel. When drawing the wheel lines, always aim for a wider stance and make sure they feel visually connected to the rocker line. This will give the sketch a more stylized look. Next, we'll move on to the side character line. And this time, I redraw this area as an air intake. If you look at the side of sports cars or hypercars, you'll often see bolt opening like this. In mid-engine cars, this area can draw air in to cool the engine, or channel airflow all over the tire to create turbulence towards the rear of the vehicle. But the most important thing is, it looks cool, and it really enhances the three-dimensional presence of the vehicle. I redraw the opening once more. Shape it volumetrically so the volume of the rear fender comes through clearly. Finish the rear and front lines to connect from the character line, and redraw the remaining lines as well. As you go, gradually adjust details and proportions to further develop the design. Now, let's draw various graphics, including the front grille. We'll make use of band reader guide, copy and paste, and scale adjustment with the joystick. Let's draw the door trim as well. Create a 3D guide from the side view, then use the segment lines we drew earlier as references. Make sure the vehicle's volume comes through clearly as you draw. Redraw the wheel arches cleanly using draw shape. I also use the joystick's rotation feature to give the rim a more geometric shape. The clearer the wheels look, the more defined and crisp the entire sketch becomes. Then simply duplicate the finished wheel sketch for the rear two wheels as well. Finally, let's add a bit of interior detail. These details add the depths inside the cabin and make the design feel more realistic. Draw the seats as well. I'm imagining a two-seat layout. If you want to be more precise about head clearance or the edge point, feel free to spend more time refining this part. Great, let's move on to the rendering part. This sketch is already modern enough for exploring the design and ideation. However, adding a bit of surface rendering to suggest volume will make the design much easier to read. Before we begin, let's make a few environment adjustments. Change the background color and adjust the sketch so each situation follows the background tone. And the Color tab, switch the material to shade it. When you paint using this material and toggle render mode, you'll notice that shadows appear on the brush strokes. What we need right now is to set the light intensity to 2.0 and toggle on ground shadows and tone shading. With these settings, switch to a yellow material and paint using the flat brush. You'll see the light and shadows separate very clearly like this. We'll call the brightest area tone 1, the mid area tone 3, and the darkest area tone 5. For rendering, these three tones, 1, 3, and 5 along with tone 7, are more than enough to make it look more stylish. I'll adjust the mid-tone tone 3 so it visually blends with the background color. Once the materials are set, we'll start rendering by painting the front hood. Use Band Radio Guide to create a wide surface. Then paint broadly with the flat brush. Paint while observing how the surface responds to the lighting direction. It doesn't need to be perfectly clean as long as the light and shadow are readable. Next, clean up the edges and paint the rest of the hood. You can use Band Radio Guide to create a single surface, but rather than filling everything in one pass, it's more effective to build it up in several steps. Once the front is roughly painted, move on to the side. Painting a complex multi-curved surface like this isn't easy, so we'll speed things up. Create a new group, then draw a 3D guide from the side view, just like when we drew the segment lines earlier. Since these lines will be used for raft, adjust the brush color and thickness accordingly. Redraw the segment lines in one pass, making sure to preserve the feel of belt line, character line, and rocker line. The lines need to be drawn in a single stroke to be used for raft. After drawing enough segment lines, tap left from the bottom context menu. Then select the segment lines you draw in order. A 3D guide will be generated along those lines. Adjust the tension using the slide on the left, then confirm the guide creation from the bottom menu. From that point on, it behaves just like a regular 3D guide. So all you need to do is paint on it. It's good to paint it lovely first, and then refine it using Rectify. Since every surface behaves differently, choose the method that feels most effective for each case. After adjusting the perspective and rotating the sketch around, you'll eventually find an angle while two defining lines of the surface visually overlap. If you draw a 3D guide at that overlapping point, you can easily define a paintable area. This method takes some time to get used to, but once it clicks, it saves a surprising amount of time. It also depends your understanding of the surface, which makes things much easier later when you move on to the modeling. Paint the remaining areas as well, including the rear. Depending on the situation, make sure to mix and match tools like Liquify and Loft as needed. Once the main tones are mostly in place, create a new group and move on to the tone 7. Rather than using pure black, it's more natural to choose a dark tone that matches the overall saturation and mood of the current scene. Start by painting the side graphics. Tone 7 works especially well for areas like air intakes, grills, lights, and the underbody. If the tone feels too dark or too bright, select all the strokes painted with the color and adjust again. Take full advantage of feather, ability to tweak colors and materials even after drawing. Bring back the dashboard and seat sketches we drew earlier and give them a simple painting. I adjusted the color to a darker tone since it feels more appropriate here. This next step is optional, but lightly painting the interior space really enhances the spatial depth of the rendering. Paint the wheels as well. You can use an even darker tone if you want. At this point, you could say the design definition is already complete. Everything beyond this falls into the finished phase, where you simply refine the design until you're satisfied. Let's add lights as parts of the finishing detail. First, switch the material to glow and the color tab. Choose a color of your liking and paint the front lights with this material. Then adjust the slider in the environment tab to create a glowing effect. For the tail lamps, I'll add a touch of retro flair and paint them in pink. This is where the glow effect really shines the most. Finally, as you refine the rendering, redraw any sketch lines that become partially hidden to bring back clearly. Adding a few sketch lines here and there helps reinforce the style and keeps the drawing expressive. I just said finally, but if you are actually working on a real project, finishing the sketch doesn't mean the work is done. So, as a bonus, I'll show you a bit of how I use Feather together with other tools through one of my go-to workflows. First, to use Feather with other tools, you'll need to export your work. Feather mainly supports exporting images, videos, and 3D models. So export your project in the format that matches the tool you plan to use. If you're working with images or videos, the best workflow is to use an external image editor or renderer. For example, I often capture my feather sketches from multiple angles and bring them into tools like Physicom for post-processing. You can render those views into a more photorealistic style and even use the result to create short animations. Try to make the most of what Feather does best. You can quickly sketch and render from multiple angles as you go. Another workflows I use a lot is working directly with the 3D model itself. For example, in Blender, there is an add-on called Blender for Feather. It's an add-on we provide that helps you work with OBJ files exported from Feather much more easily. You can find more details in the description. Using this add-on, I clean up my Feather sketches and use them in different ways. Most of the time, I use them for higher quality rendering or animation, or I export just the curve data and use it as a reference for modeling. Honestly, it works much better than traditional orthorhombic sketches. And that's it. Hope this helps with your work. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time.